The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
When we look at the life of St. Ignatius, in so many ways, Ignatius's life, he spent it trying to kind of live out today's Gospel from Luke, of trying to be detached from all things, except one thing, and that was God, and the reliance upon God. He spent his whole life trying to remove those distractions from his life. Indeed, he came across, as he was learning and going deeper with Jesus as a companion of Jesus, he came to a very simple conclusion, one which might bring a yawn to our face and to our breath. But it's one that contains such great truth, that was such great consolation for Ignatius. And it's this simple fact, that at the moment of Ignatius's birth, in our existence, and I know this sounds so simplistic, but it was a great thing that he discovered in his life, that the moment of our existence, God is there. God is there. That simple fact was a great consolation to Ignatius. It grounded him in the spiritual life and journey. But it didn't stop there. He also discovered that when we start looking for God, well, God has already been looking for us. And looking for us with a passion. And this would bring Ignatius to tears. That as Ignatius spent his life looking for God, looking for meaning, all the while God was there looking for Ignatius with passion. I think it humbles us too when we think of that in our own lives. Have we pondered enough, or have we allowed our heart open enough to the God finding us? And does it indeed bring us to tears? Ignatius discovered that really to know the God who's finding us is to detach. Rid yourself of those things that are kind of getting in the way of you being a child. Simple. Without the clutter. Being who you truly are. Because it is in who you really are that God basks, that God's life gleams with joy and pleasure. And I know all this seems very simple, that being childlike, being totally dependent upon God, detached from those things that blind us to the God who's finding us. It all might seem so simple, but that is the wonder and the beauty of the God that Ignatius discovered. That God isn't that complicated. Often it's us who complicate God. And so Jesus today in today's gospel says, cast off your worry. Cast off those things that are getting in your way. Open your heart to the God that's already there. This was brought home to me, this just opening of our hearts, casting it all out. While in Rome, I had many opportunities to pray in the actual room in Rome where Ignatius spent the majority of his ministry. It was in that room where his bedroom was, and his office, there was a little chapel. But it wasn't the chapel that kind of broke my heart. But it was his little desk that looked out onto the square, a Roman square, a busy Roman square, a city. When he formed the Jesuits, he detached himself of his dreams and began to dream the dream of God. And that was to go out into the world, to set the world on fire, as we say, to bring the good news everywhere, and not just to the Holy Land of his short-sighted dream. But I can't help but think, it broke my heart to think of Ignatius looking out that window from the Jesu, looking out onto that busy city square, maybe even seeing one of his own companions preaching on the street corner. As he began to write the constitutions, write letters to all the different Jesuits throughout the different parts of the world, and I couldn't help but think that his heart longed to be out there in that world, preaching the love of God, the good news, hearing confessions, caring for the wounded. But yet he was asked by God to sit behind a desk, to administrate, to mission from a desk, from that upper room. And it must have broke his heart. But in another way, I think it opened his heart. Because from there, as he operated the Society of Jesus from that window, from that desk, that he began to see as God sees. A vision of service, of a heart set on fire, the preaching of the good news to those who haven't heard the good news of God's love and forgiveness. And so he was able to detach from his own desires to be out there in the world, to pray for that world, to have a prayerful stance, to mission others to go out into that world, indeed to set that world on fire. But that only could happen in knowing a God who is there, who's always been there, a God who's already been looking for us.